Welcome to this episode of the People Dividend podcast. I am absolutely thrilled to have in the studio today, in our virtual studio, Maria Brinck. Today, we're going to do something, audience, which is to explore with Maria Brinck a bold new paradigm for leadership, one that's tough enough to tackle the challenges of our time while bringing the best for humanity. My guest today has a truly unique perspective on what leadership can and should be. So, Maria Brinck is a global leadership expert, former Fortune 500 executive, and author of the recent book, The Leadership We Need, A New Mindset for a Brighter Future. Her perspective is shaped by a decade of advising CEOs and boards, as well as her time living with indigenous communities in the Congo Basin rainforest. Maria, welcome to the People Dividend. We're so glad you're here.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for having me.
It's great. Your book, The Leadership We Need, offers a bold blueprint for a new era of leadership. For our listeners, for everyone listening to the People Dividend podcast today, what's the biggest shift leaders need to make today to address the challenges we're facing as a society? What's the biggest shift?
Well, I think it's obvious to a lot of people, me included, and kind of the reason why I wrote the book, one of the reasons, is that the leaders of today are simply not the leaders of tomorrow. Why do I say that? It's because there's so much at stake today, and we cannot continue with the type of leadership we have. They are not looking out for people and the well-being of their people, and they're not looking out for the effect on our planet and on which all of our lives depend. And I mean, obviously, there are numbers behind it. This is our current planetary as well as human trajectory. This is not my personal opinion. It's based on the experts and science. We know that from Gallup research, we know about 80% of employees in organizations today across the globe are not engaged at work. We also know that their health issues, their mental health issues, anxiety, depression is a crisis in itself. We know our planet is not doing well. We know that 70% of our biodiversity has been killed off since 1970, and we haven't changed our trajectory, which of course we're part of, even though it feels like leaders seem to think we're not a part of that biodiversity. So there's a lot of things going on, and it's just simply a fact that we can no longer afford this type of leadership that frankly got us into this crisis, and it's a public crisis.
And I wonder if some of your experiences, you've spent time living with indigenous communities in the Congo Basin rainforest. It reminds me of I was a Peace Corps volunteer a long, long, long time ago, living in Chijevo village in Bwala on
Oh,
Santa Isabel in the Solomon Islands. But and you learn differently from people who are, are subsistence farmers or who are outside of the cash economy. In your experience, what did you learn about leadership from the communities in which you live, and how does it differ from Western leadership culture, if
yeah,
that's even such a concept? Yeah.
yeah, and I think, and we have to talk about this sometime, Mike. This is so exciting. I had no idea. I guess I should have done a little bit more prep work before the show about you. But putting that aside for now, and you can probably attest to what I'm about to say, because you probably saw it there as well, is that these leaders show that leadership is not about them. Uh, it's all about the people around them. And that's the leadership we need to get to. It's basically a 180. In the Western culture of leadership, it seems to me, and I'm sure you see it, it's all about the leader. It's all about the leader taking control, being the smartest in the room, commanding people. And frankly, currently we're seeing, threats, people being fired instead of engaged at work. Fire somebody is obviously easier than actually engaging somebody and motivate somebody, which takes work and it takes get to know people. Um, the indigenous leadership culture, and I'm not speaking and I'm not kind of hoping that that's going to be the next culture. I'm just saying I think we need a balance of the two. I'm not saying one is necessarily better than the other, but what's interesting and I think we can learn and what I observed was that they're much more about the community. They're much more about every single member and making sure that everybody is being heard and listened to and valued. And there is a diversity of perspective, there's a diversity of thought, highly lacking in today's leadership, whether it's organizations or as we're seeing currently in nation.
It
Where
really
yeah,
prompts the question, Maria. I mean, how can leaders in today's organization apply these lessons to create more engaged and effective teams? I mean, thinking about what you're saying, how does it, how do leaders do that? How do they make this application happen?
yeah, they need to go beyond just the quarterly earnings and you know kind of the retribution if you don't hit your numbers, so to speak, but I really think about long term wealth building. And we can have it both. We can have the numbers and consistent performance over time. The key factor is get to know the people on your team, get to know what their core values are, ask the right question, get to know their purpose, get to know their unique strengths, as well as your own, by the way. Really know yourself and try to meet those people where they're at and provide the support and the tools that they need to be at their best and show up at their best. It also includes questions that you probably read in my book, Synergy Q12, where we have questions around things such as what situation, when do you feel the most alive at work? Uh, who are you currently working with? Are you by yourself? Are you with a team? So we know when people are at their best and feel like they're at their best. And asking people when they feel the most alive, and then try to, of course, as Jim Collins says, try to put the right people on the right seat on the bus, right?
Hmm.
Things really need to happen. And understanding and really value people for who they are and not try to mold them to just be about the numbers and the consequences and the cost of that is just not sustainable, whether it's the well-being of their people that they're constantly threatening with firing if they're not performing. And there's obviously a reason everybody wants to perform. It's almost like we think that people want to go about their lives and not perform. Everybody wants to perform. We just need, to feel like we're valued and we have the right tools to do so. And that is directly from the management and the leadership teams to provide that, to give that opportunity for their direct reports.
And I think in your book, you talk about a strengths-based movement as a way to improve employee engagement sixfold. Can you explain what this philosophy is, this strengths-based movement, and how leaders can implement it in their day-to-day work?
Yes. This is one of my favorite assessments, and it really goes to kind of identify your true unique strengths. Um, it is an assessment and a tool that is all about, it's really a movement about focusing on what you're good at, your strengths, versus trying to fix what you're not good at. We can all agree that we all have things we're working on, and there are things that really do need improvement, but we shouldn't be focusing on that. Instead, we should focus on what we're good at and then try to find partners that can complement our weaknesses. And I call it weaknesses instead of you know problems or fixes, but weaknesses. Instead of putting our energy there, we know through research that you actually perform better when you focusing what a person is doing well.
And one of the things that makes me think about this, about doing your best and leading with strengths, is that you've also highlighted the hidden cost of always being the smartest person in the room. Certainly among my clients, they are often the smartest person in the room, no doubt about it. And yet, how they engineer and conduct themselves and as a consequence, their teams. Let's talk about this, though, about how does intellectual dominance stifle innovation? I'm not talking about intellectual bullies, and I have coached them. But What can leaders do to foster a more collaborative environment in their teams and in their workplaces?
Well, I think a mindset, since the book is about shifting our mindset around leadership, right, to have a brighter future. I think one of the mindset that we really need to make sure that our leaders are um, embracing is the mindset that no one is as smart as all of us. And we know for a fact that in business, the greatest asset is the diversity of thought. And so when you have a leader who consider themselves the smartest in the room, the cost, not just to the well-being for for the people on your team to not feel valued and a part of the process and the lack of engagement that causes, it's a cost to the business and it's a cost to society and it's frankly a cost to our environment and our planet as well because they usually don't make the best decisions on their own.
Hmm.
Might be faster, might be faster. You know, you have a saying in English, you know, you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to, how is it? How does it go? If you want to go far,
Go
let's.
fast to go slow, something like that. Go slow to go fast.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah,
that's I would recommend to have the mindset of knowing, know what, nobody's as smart as all of us. So they need to be a little bit
right.
more careful around that.
Maria, you've had such a fascinating career from advising Fortune 500 CEOs to living in the Congo Basin. What's one leadership lesson that has most shaped your perspective?
I think just knowing yourself, which really comes with a lot of reflection, asking yourself the right questions, um, finding out what your core values are. And in the book, I recommend because it's very simple and doesn't overcomplicate things. I recommend the Barrett Value Assessment. Um, knowing your strength, um, and knowing your purpose. Really
Hmm.
hard about when do I feel the most alive? And that's such an important question because there's so much wisdom that will come from that question if you really ponder and think about that question. So that happens to be my favorite question. But there are many,
Knowing strength and purpose. Yes, please.
yeah, there are many other questions. You know, how can I bring that aliveness into my work on Monday? Right? What needs to shift? Who do I need, or how? What projects should I be involved in? What people do I enjoy to work with, or am I more of a loner and I prefer to work by my?
Hmm.
Those are very important questions. What does success look like? Can I bring it into the conversation with during my performance review with my manager next time? Can I propose what project, what people, and show them this is one of my best. These are my strengths, and kind of propose that. If the manager doesn't take enough time to get to know you, you can kind of open the conversation up with actually proposing some of the things that you discover about yourself. So I think that's so important to do because it's when you know yourself, you also are more capable of turning things up and turning things down and have a wider set of skills to meet people very different from you and meet those people where they're at and build bridges, which is the key here is to build bridges with your direct reports, with everybody really. Um, yeah.
In that building of bridges, if you could give one piece of advice to leaders who really are feeling stuck in traditional leadership mindsets, what would that piece of advice be to those who are feeling really stuck?
Yeah, I mean, the tricky part, Mike, is that the, we are in an environment that over evaluate the masculine. And with the masculine, it's not just about men or women with the masculine, feminine. We just have a leadership culture that has, in my opinion, and as you saw in the book, been monopolized by male masculinity. And it's still alive and doing very well today and we see it everywhere. And so it's difficult to be a leader, let's say in corporate America, and not play or shine in that environment. You kind of, those are the parameters, if you will. So you're obviously going to have to play to some of that masculinity, whether you're a man or woman for that matter. Uh, I usually tell people as an advice and kind of a way to think about it is that you go to a high stake interview and you really want that next job in your career. You're not going to show up in the usual comfortable clothes. You're going to show up and you know look the par, right? And it might not be the most comfortable clothes, and it might not even be you, but that's just what you do, and that's to get in. So that's the first thing. You need to get in, and you need to get to those positions, and need to get the possibly the title and the status that comes with it. But once you're in, we can really start changing that environment. It is really up to us. Um, Most leaders, when they get to a certain position, should be able to open it up and bring in more of the humanity. And that's really on them. They can do it in their team meetings with their intimate teams. They can do it in so many ways. And to bring in more of the feminine, I don't know if this is something that your listeners can actually see, but it's really
Mm.
that
Peak
perform.
performance, masculine, feminine. Yes, it comes across quite well, as well as the handwritten notes at the top.
There, oh, that is, a great example of this, of course, being Nelson Mandela, who was very masculine, started out extremely masculine. I think he was a boxer, if I'm not mistaken. Was, put in prison for 30 years for being the opposition party and frankly, for being Black. Came out on the other side, and instead of seeking revenge, seeked reconciliation and partnership. I mean, talking about somebody who is this, and this is really what we need to see in some shape or form better in leadership in today's.
Well, well, hopefully there are lessons we can model from Nelson Mandela. But for listeners who want to start leading with more authenticity and purpose, what's one small step they can take today, Maria?
I would say to go and take StrengthsFinder, the StrengthsFinder assessment. You can find it at gallup.com. If you want to add to that, I would say get the Barrett values if you want to spend some time on values. And look at the Synergy Q12 in my book. That's all about creating purpose and bring what you find into work. It's not expensive. It won't take a lot of time. It will really give you an opening to how you can show up at your best. And then start to this and put guidelines and deadlines around it, and even who's going to hold you accountable to show up that way. Even the accountability partner or yourself, et cetera, to make sure you get some good movement on those areas where you can improve.
Wow, that's super. And where can our listeners find your book, The Leadership We Need, and learn more about your work?
Yeah, it's available on your favorite online bookstore as of now to pre-order. It's available on Amazon, and I would love to hear from you and even a review if you find it useful. And they can connect with me on LinkedIn, Maria Brinck with the Brinck.
Well, that's great. We'll have it in the show notes. Well, Maria, today, for me and for our audience, you reminded us that leadership isn't just about driving results. It's about creating environments where people and ideas can thrive. And I'm so thankful for that. And by learning about from Indigenous cultures, embracing strengths based leadership, and leading with purpose, I'm taking away that we all can build a brighter future for everyone in our organizations. So, again, Maria, thank you so much. I invite my listeners to connect with your work. Once again, thanks.
Thank you.
And for everyone listening to this episode of the People Dividend podcast with Maria Brinck today, please subscribe, leave a review. Be sure to tune in for the next episode. And until then, stay well.